Hey there everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at part 2 of the Poisson distribution series. So let's say that this is the question over here. It says a call center gets on average 2.4 calls per 10 minutes. Okay, so either your questions could be in sentence form like this, or they could simply be given like this. So what this means is that, as I said, a call center gets on average 2.4 calls per 10 minutes. So this is your lambda over here. Then the first question is, what is the probability that it receives exactly two calls in those 10 minutes? So all you have to do is simply put the values in the formula that you know that you have. So 2 x equals to 2 over here. So on your Euler's constant, power minus the lambda over here, so minus 2.4 times 2.4 and whatever is over here, all divided by the r factorial, and then you get your answer. Now always remember to leave your answer to 3 significant figures. Okay, then the next question says, what is the probability that it receives exactly 5 calls in 10 minutes? And you repeat the same process. X equal to 5, you put the values in. So over here, as you can see that this value and this value over here remains the same, right? And that's because my E is going to be same, and I'm going to put lambda on top, and lambda is the one that is given over here, so that's not going to change. That's why you'll see that that's always going to change. The only thing that will change will be this and this, so be careful over here when you're entering your this thing. Then the next question is, what is the probability that it receives exactly 0 calls in 10 minutes? So you repeat the same process. Then let's look at another question. Let's say that the question is the same. A call center gets on average 3 calls per 10 minutes. So this is our lambda again. What is the probability that it gets less than 1 call in 10 it gets less than or equal to 1 call in 10 minutes? So over here, what they mean by less than or equal to 1 is that it can either receive 1, or it can either receive 0, or it can receive 1 call, right? So over here, you're going to have to combine their probabilities. So you first do px equal to 0 here, and then you do px equal to 1. Now there are 2 ways of doing this. You can either do this method like the longer one, or you can simply write it like this. So over here, you have to do e minus your lambda over here, and then you are trying to basically combine this and put it over here. So that will be 3 power 0 all over 0 factorial plus 3 power 1 over 1 factorial, which is the same as this. Now 0 factorial is 1, 1 factorial is 1, so I don't really need to write this over here. And since 3 power 0 or anything power 0 is also 1, I can just leave it like that. So any way that you prefer, you can do it. Now over here it says, what is the probability that it receives less than or equal to 2 calls in those 10 minutes? So less than or equal to 2 calls means it can receive 1, 0, 1 or 2. So you repeat the same thing over here, and you can get your answer like that. Then it says, what is the probability that the call center receives less than okay, so I think there's a problem with this question here, so let's skip this and move on to the next one. So repeating the same question, a call center gets on average 2.4 calls per 10 minutes. Okay, 1.2 calls per 10 minutes. What is the probability that this time the call center gets more than or equal to 2 calls in those 10 minutes? Now more than or equal to 2 means that it can be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to infinity, right? But you can't possibly keep doing that. So what you have to do is you have to find it for 1, 0 and 1, and you subtract it from 1, because the maximum that any probability can be is 1. So you do the same over here. You find it for 0, you find it for 1, you get your answer, you subtract it for 1, and then you write your answer. Then it says, what is the probability that it receives more than 4 calls in 10 minutes? Now it's more than 4, that means it can be 5, 6, 7, all the way to infinity. So this time you'll take 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4 as well, because it said more than 4. Over here it said more than or equal to 2, that means 2 is part, but over here 4 will not be part. So you repeat the same process. You find it for 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you subtract 1 from it, and you get your answer. Then it says, what is the probability that the call center receives between 2 and 5 calls in 10 minutes. Now it says between 2 and 5. That means that 2 is part, 3 is part, 4 is part, and 5 is part. Now since it's only these that I'm trying to find, I don't need to subtract from anything. I can simply do the same thing. I have my 2, 3, 4, and 5 here, get my answer, represent it in 3 significant figures, and I'm done. Now this was all for part 2 of it. In the next video we'll be looking at unit intervals. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.